long ago? You said it was a few months that you had worked out with Mike. Where was that?
So that was actually in Atlanta's gym in Laval. So in Quebec, there's the island of Montreal, and there's various locations around it. So
Okay.
Laval is like more up, and it's actually, I didn't even realize it's one of the best gyms in Canada, and a lot of Americans fly down here just to train there. And it's been, no joke, it's like a 20-minute drive from my place. So I'm probably going
Oh,
to
okay.
sign up. I didn't, even what's his name? There's this classic physique guy that showed up there a couple months ago. He's
Hmm.
in like the top 5 lineup. It's a popular gym.
Yeah,
And, Dr. Mike was in the area. He hit me up, and I showed
it's
up, and
awesome.
I was instructed by him and Jared Feather, both great guys. And, the Scott DeVito guy as well. Man, they will humble you.
Yeah.
Like you, yeah, they will strip you down.
So what were some of the takeaways? I mean, obviously those guys are both openly enhanced. Obviously, you're very pro natural bodybuilding and just natural lifting in general. So did you feel like all of their training takeaways were applicable, or what did you take
Oh
away
yeah,
for your own training?
100%. I would say that their teachings in person changed my life. It
Hmm.
completely revolutionized. I'm not even just saying this to make them sound good. Like, it's the truth. Immediately, so the biggest takeaway is that hypertrophy specific technique allows you to get more out of less weight, which is what I freaking live on. That's the meme of my channel, because at some point you get so strong that every exercise fatigues you. You're benching 315 on the regular. You feel your joints. You feel, you know, what that set does to you. Then you got to complete the rest of your workout. You're overhead pressing big loads. Everything kills you. It kills your recovery. You're exhausted. And what Dr. Mike and Jared Feather show me is that you don't have to overload all the time. You can use self-limiting loads with this form that just makes everything hard. So I'll give you an example. And I just talked about this in my recent video. I think it was 2 weeks before training with them. I did a reverse grip bench at home, 315 for 7. I show up at the gym. Okay. First set, I believe I got 275 for 7 on the regular flat bench.
Okay.
So that is a significant drop. And I came in there fresh, fully ready, pre workout, feeling good in the morning, no confounding factors, was well rested, bulked up. I didn't get any weaker from 2 weeks earlier. And these guys take me down half a plate using an easier grip, and yet I'm struggling because the negative was greatly slowed down. It must have been 4 to 6 seconds, uh, really holding that pause. And what's important is that you don't rush the final part to get to your chest. So a lot of people, they'll control the majority of the repetition, but that little end, they'll kind of like sink it in, and they'll
Sure.
actually let their chest collapse ever so slightly. So what Jared was telling me is you have to imagine that you're resisting the puppet master. There's someone pulling you up, and he described it, quote unquote, you want to arch the shit out of your bench. So in the comment section, you'll actually see guys are like, yo, why is he arching so hard? Well, Jared was telling me to do that. You want to really open up as if you're stretching on a door, and you're exaggerating it. So not only are you letting the bar pause on your chest, but you're actually pulling it into you. So how powerlifters will say you're bending the bar, right? Here, you're not only bending, but you're like rowing it into your chest, but actively, like you can feel the fibers ripping apart, and it's incredibly painful. So the controlled tempo, it just strips you, and it's not regular tempo training that you're used to, because you're magnifying every cue. And I did this on the flat bench, on the incline bench. I was brought down to 65-pound dumbbells. I can do the 120s on the incline. I'm using 65 pounds. And Dr. Mike does 80 pounds or 85 pounds. Jared Feather does 90, 95. And I asked him, do you actually train this way off camera? He's like, absolutely. Ever since I trained this way, my joints feel so much better. I'm still just as strong. What do we have to prove? He's like, I can bench 500. You can bench 405. Get more out of less weight. So, and I train that way moving forward. I did the same thing on the dips. And you know what? That's a great way of building end range mobility, because a lot of guys struggle to get deep. Well, if you ease your way into it, you're going to get the maximum stretch. You might take down a couple plates off your dip. You might go from 3 plates to 1. real talk, or body weight, right? So there's that. The joints, the mobility, training the best position, the way to stretch. And then the beauty of all this is that it doesn't hurt your strength. So I train this way, and you can see it on my Instagram page. And I went and test my reverse grip bench again. And what did I hit? 315 for 7. The same load that I had done before I met up with Dr. Mike.
And how much
So that's
later
how
was
I
that?
knew. I don't remember.
Okay.
But it wasn't that, like, it wasn't too far off. And I
Hmm.
had just started a cut. So I
Okay.
lost a little bit of weight, three to
Yeah.
5 pounds, something like that. But the fact that I maintained it, doing this slow training with 225, because that's what I was lifting at home.
Hmm.
I mean, that told me everything. So
Sure.
the emphasis on technique, the same thing with the pull-ups, using a 45-pound plate. I would do this for months on chins, and I ended up setting a new PR. 4 plates at 175 pounds, which is a 365 total. So not only was his teachings beneficial on the bench training, but it helped me get a new lifetime PR on an exercise that I used to overload the shit out of. So that says everything. And even the bent over rows. Although with that, I've kind of gone back to introducing a bit more body English because I find it just doesn't have a good strength curve. You
Yeah.
know, that lockout, I feel like you do have to cheat a little bit, but I do like the deficit aspect. So you stand on a mat or something, you can get deep, round the back, and try to use controlled cheating. Not that you're just jerking all over the place, but in terms of the form cues to get more out of less weight, it's on a different level. And the coaching in person, I can't explain it, but it's not like watching their technique segments because they will put you into place.
Hmm.
Oh, and one more thing, even the benching, they were the ones who made me start flaring my elbows out. After years of following powerlifters saying,
Hmm.
you want to keep everything tucked in, I started doing the opposite because of them, especially on the incline bench. And I feel my pecs more than ever before. It really stretches it out. So now I mix in both, you
Yeah.
know? So those are
Well,
some
I
of the important
think,
takeaways.
yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think, like you said, you mix in both. I wouldn't want people to get misled in that. I do think if you were to, let's say, do 2 years of like very slow, controlled bodybuilding training, you would eventually lose some of that explosiveness and power. Like I don't think any football player would be told to
Yeah, it's
do
not
all of your
optimal.
training. Yeah, and just for the purpose of strength, right?
Yeah, of course.
So just I just want people to understand that like just because you went back to an exercise and were still able to hit PRs a month later or whatever it was, doesn't mean that over a year. Like I think about some of the lifts I used to do. I used to rep 315 on front squats, and there's no way I could do that right now because I don't train like that at all. Even though my legs might be the
Yeah.
same size, like there is absolutely an adaptation to that type of training. So just to clarify,
I
I know you know that,
I
but
I would agree, and I think you do reinforce that movement pattern. Like since then, I have a hard time going faster. My body kind of limits itself. I don't know if it's fear, or I don't know if it's just because I prefer feeling this way, but I don't rush my negatives. Even if I'm trying to do an AMRAP, I'm eventually just going to slow down. Like my body says, nope, this is the safer form, just do it. Which you can say is not as good for getting PRs, but I mean, everything has a trade off, right?
sure. Yeah, and I think from a bodybuilding standpoint, they're totally correct. I mean, and you see that with some older guys as well who still have a lot of muscle mass, and most of them are not doing this super heavy, super explosive training. Sometimes you see it, but most of the time they've slowed things down, you know?
Yeah, there's less peak forces, is what it
Yeah.
is, and the fact that you can strip down the load by 50 pounds or whatever it is, it's just I feel like it's important for those who are strong. If you're not strong or you went through an extensive cut, maybe you lost 20, 30 pounds, you're lean or shredded, yeah, you can probably use your normal form again using the initial loads and it'll feel the same as if you went even lighter but then slowed down your form. But in this case, is there really a benefit of injury prevention when absolute load is factored in now that you're weaker, you know? So like if you go from, let's say you're bulked up, you're benching 275 for sets of 10, but you were like 20% body fat, and then you cut to 12% body fat and you're hitting 225 for 10. I mean, it's only 225. You don't have to use that kind of technique. But if you do want to, you'll be down to 185. So that's a personal choice, right? But either way, your recovery is still going to be okay.
So what do you think
That's what I
you would
meant.
do? Because I think the RP guys would probably say for anybody, If
Yeah.
you want to maximize hypertrophy, you should do it that way. Other people would say, you know what, get strong first. Once you are, using 100-pound dumbbells
Uh,
for reps and everything, then focus on this stuff. I'll give my opinion, but where do you fall on
that's
that?
I'd love to hear your opinion. You see, it's like we can argue, theoreticals, and then there's the real world, right? What would I personally do? I would just get strong and then start doing that. Because I mean, that's my journey, right? And that's my bias. But could someone get to the same level without doing that? Probably, but I'd love to see it, play out in the real world.